Hello, and welcome back to People's Perspective, where I believe everyone has a story to share, even if they don't believe they do. Today, with me, I have a very special guest with me. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Joanna.
And before we get started, do I have your consent to record and post this on YouTube?
Yes,
Okay, I just like making sure to ask that every time.
I appreciate it.
I'll, if I don't, I like to ask it at the end too, just in case you said anything and you're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that,
Okay.
or maybe I don't want this posted at all. I'll ask at the end. If I
Okay.
don't, remind me to.
That's all
It'll be
right.
fine.
I'm pretty open, so.
That's fair. Um, so, let's get started.
Okay.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Any interesting facts that you have at the top of your head?
Uh-huh.
Fun little things about you?
Okay, so I guess I'm married with 3 kids. They're all teens. I guess a fun, interesting fact is I was born in the Philippines and I came here in the U.S. in 1992. My parents, my dad was actually a movie director. Um, and his famous movies were mainly in the 70s and 80s. And my mom was a stunt woman for my dad and
Your mom
acting.
was a stunt woman,
Yes,
and your father was a
movie director.
Did they meet through?
Through the work. So he's a
Okay.
movie producer and writer. So my dad was considerably older than my mom. And so, but that's how they met. And in the Philippines at the time, there wasn't like a divorce. So, like, my mom was like fourth mistress or something. But,
Oh my.
oh, yeah, no. But, like, um, we had a close relationship with his original wife, and we were close with my half brothers. But I was told that my dad loved me so much that he chose to live with my mom. But yeah, and also my dad has apparently like 20 kids, and so I have a ton of
Oh
half
boy.
siblings.
I couldn't like I'm hey, I'm only like 22, so
Yeah.
I have long life ahead of me, but I couldn't even imagine having one child, let alone 20.
Yes.
That is insane. And I know that's not even like in the history of all like high amounts of children out there. That's probably not even close to like anywhere near as like the highest amount
Oh,
someone's
yes.
ever had kids.
Yes.
But even then, that's like, how do you keep track of all that?
I mean, I guess his wife and mistresses the moms had to figure that out. But yeah, no, we were the last set of kids, and so all of them were considerably older. The children. So some of them were actually my mom's age.
Oh, jeez.
But yeah. So I guess those are the fun facts that I probably can think of. Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty interesting. That's not something you. So you said your father worked on some famous movies back in the 70s. You said
Well, he
or
directed.
directed.
They were considered famous movies in the Philippines. He was really big into comedy, and so like he was what is it, spoof and comedy acts, that type of thing. So like my brother, like from my mom, has all his movies and posters of like, you know what I mean, like.
Hmm.
And then like my husband got me some of the copies of my dad's movies. Apparently, you can buy them online now. So unfortunately, because my mom was considered a mistress, we didn't have any rights, which makes sense. So his
Yeah.
original wife was able to get all the rights to him, so of his property. So, but she was a nice woman. When my mom came here in '91, we were left. There was 5 of us left in the Philippines, and we moved from family to family, and then we eventually lived with my dad's wife, who we called like Tita, which is considered aunt. But she was, she basically raised us, and then like the year later, I came here, and supposedly all my siblings were supposed to come one after the other every year because it costs a lot of money to um, bring children from another country here,
I
but
would
they
imagine.
ended up not coming here until 10 years later. So my siblings, unfortunately, was not raised by my mom, but with family. But I don't know which is better because I ended up being raised with my mom, and Unfortunately, my mom has a mental illness that she refuses to seek help with. And so, like, she was volatile growing up. There was some abuse, and I have some resentment. And unfortunately, I still love my mom, but like she is so far out of it that she has no relationship with any of us. She kind of pushed us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I'm sorry to hear
Yeah,
that. That's
no,
always.
I mean, like, I'm used to it. I used to be super angry about it, but, I understand the struggles that my mom had to go through now that I'm an adult. Um, and I would like to have a relationship with her, but until she seeks help, I got to protect my own family. Does that make sense?
Of course,
Yeah.
you got to look out for what's important
Yeah,
to you.
and sorry, I like tangent a lot.
No, I mean, hey, if anything, that's better for this.
Yeah, I tangent a lot. So
Tangents are great for a podcast because
Yeah.
it fills up all the time. We got to get to an hour somehow.
Oh
so.
yeah, no, you're fine. And I giggle a lot because sometimes I'm nervous or I just naturally giggle.
No, that's perfectly fine. I do know this is up to you to share if you want, but there's the one story about you giggling in a certain situation where you shouldn't have.
Oh yeah, the funeral.
Oh, that I was thinking a different one.
Which one? You can tell me.
When you were getting robbed, was it? Didn't you work for a bank and you were getting?
Oh yes, yeah. So I worked for a bank, and there was a gentleman who was of suspicion, and he was casing the joint, and he was planning to rob us. And so when I called the police officer in a different branch of the bank, I was giggling because I was like, "Hey, there's someone here. We need your help." And you're like, "Are you sure?" Because you're laughing. I'm like, "I can't help it, but yes, we need your help." Yes, I was giggling during that time.
I mean, nervous laughter is a thing.
Oh yeah, I
it's
mean, but
very much a
some
thing.
people don't appreciate it. I've actually laughed during a funeral, and like family members are like, "Why is she laughing?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I can't help it.
I see it as something perfectly rational. I mean, there's the whole flight, freeze.
Yes.
There's also laughter.
Laughter. Yeah, it's a nice coping skills. But like, I do seek a counselor, and they said maybe one of the assignments is just laughing when it's actually funny, which is really hard. You know what I mean? It's hard to break that habit and it's
course.
something I've been using since I was a kid, right?
Of course. I mean, breaking any habit is incredibly difficult. I'm pretty sure I've told this story to you, but I don't know if this is the correct terminology, but I Pavlov belled myself
Oh, yeah.
when I was younger because as an edgy teen growing up, I thought it would be the funniest thing in the world to, whenever I sneeze, cuss.
Oh.
I'm saying this like I can't say. I don't. Here's the thing. I know my parents are going to watch this.
Yeah, okay.
But they also know I'm an adult and they know I can cuss.
Yes.
And it's not like they're against it. They're not like a heavily religious family where if I were to say, I'm just going to say, if I were to say fuck, they would be like, my goodness.
My goodness. I think it's a
I
natural
yeah.
reflex.
But anyway, I would sneeze and I would go, chew fuck. Because I thought it was funny. I thought it was really funny because I would do it with my friends. And,
Yes.
And then one time when I was alone, just hanging out by myself, I sneezed and then I swore and I was like, oh no. I have conditioned myself to swear whenever I sneeze, and I'm like, I gotta stop this now. I gotta nip it in the bud now.
Oh, yeah. True. It's true. At least you noticed it while you were alone and not in public.
Exactly. At least it wasn't back when parents used to take me to church and it was in the middle of church or something like that.
Yeah, that would
That
have
would have been
funny.
awkward. That would have been really funny.
That would have been funny, but kind of awkward. I get it.
That would have a lot of explaining to do.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But I want to get back to this because you said
Yes.
you're married with 3 kids.
Yes.
You said all teens?
So I have a 19-year-old. She actually goes here to Kent State. And then I have a 16-year-old who's a sophomore, a 13-year-old, she'll be 14 this year, she's currently in 8th grade. So, yeah.
They're all, are they all troubled teens? Or are they all pains in the butts like I hear most
Actually,
teens are?
It's interesting because they're very different. So my oldest is so, like, edgy. My son calls her emo. She like wears all black. She has a bright pink metallic hair. Actually, if you've ever seen her on campus, it looks like death walking because she's always on black. I mean, I love it. So, and then my son, complete opposite. You know, he's like literally a jock. He has to be in every sport, and he likes being social, which the girls and I are not. I guess it's good to have one of those, which my husband and two girls and I are not like social at all. He's very extroverted, which is kind of funny. And then my youngest, I guess you would call her like this little preppy girl, which we don't know where she got that from. But like fun fact about her is she's actually really good at rapping. It's the funniest thing. So like I don't know, like she listens to a lot of Eminem and she can match his verses word for word, beat on beat. And it's like pretty impressive. I don't know, I find that impressive.
Has she ever tried to attempt Rap God?
um no. So the thing is, she can sing along, but she's tried creating her rap and rapping it, and she has no beat. And like we'll be in a car, she's like, I got it, I got it, I got it. And like she'll go and like her sister's like, you need to stop. And I'm like, oh man. So, but yes, she's like into theater. So
Cool.
it's nice because I have like three children that are very different personalities. My husband and I were always big on, you know, letting them explore who they are, find their own way. And so my husband and I are considered Christian, you know, and so like I will say our oldest one has kind of stepped away from her faith, but you know, my husband's more conservative. I'm a bit more like, hey, you know, everybody goes through this part of their life. You know, they have to find themselves, and I'm like not worried because I do believe that, you know, God or, you know, Jesus kind of intercedes with everyone at their own different times. So it's like, I guess I'm not the greatest evangelist because I'm like, I don't go out there. So, but I don't mind talking about it. I just don't like force myself on people.
Of course. No, I think that's perfectly reasonable. I mean, there are many different aspects to many different religions
Yeah.
that allow people to be able to explore themselves while also, I guess, in religious terms, being saved and
Yeah.
being still allowing yourself to be whatever God out there's child without having to like directly worship.
Oh, yes.
I think that's the best of religion is when you allow other people to also be able to be themselves.
Yes.
Because
You get
whether-
to see their perspective and understand where they're coming from, and you understand why they're choosing that faith. So yeah, I totally get it. But here's a interesting, funny thing about her is when she was younger, like my oldest and my son, they used to do junior Bible quizzing, and this is going to sound so lame, but junior Bible quizzing is literally a competition about the Bible. But she actually is a state champion, and she is a top national champion. And so, like, even to this day, now that she's not, and she did this when she was first grade to fifth grade, because that's junior Bible quizzing, and then there's teen Bible quizzing. She was like, I'm not doing that. But even to this day, she can quote verses left and right, and she is very knowledgeable of the Bible. So I mean, like, I've asked her, I'm like, hey, where are you in your faith? Because I do have conversations with my kids. We're very open. She was like, you know, I believe there is a God, but I don't know how to take that. You know what I mean? So like, and I'm like, oh, cool. You know, we're very open. My oldest daughter is part of the. I'm not good at this.
LGBT.
Thank you. I've lost all the letters. But yeah, she has so many friends in that community, and there was a point where she was, you know, exploring her sexuality, and also like, I don't mean to like be derogatory this because I don't know the terms, but like, you know, the pronouns. I don't understand the pronouns, but like my youngest teaches me, and I get it, you know. So like, yeah, she just can't like correlate that aspect with the Bible, because the Bible does say a different thing with what sexuality is. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, no, I get where her point of view is. But yeah, no, we talk openly in our family. Well, my husband says you are too open. Like, I had like the sex conversation with all my kids at the age of like 9. And then and the Santa Claus Easter Bunny situation also at the same time. You'd be surprised the thing that really hurt them the most is like the Christmas, like Santa Claus and Easter Bunny. They could care less about the sex talk. I mean, like, they were a little uncomfortable, but they cried about, oh, sorry, the Santa Claus is not real. I'm like, okay.
Well, I can't show this to any of my younger nephews or nieces.
Oh,
now.
I'm so sorry.
No, I'm fine. It's not like they would have seen
I'm so
this.
sorry.
No, it's completely. I'm joking. It's not like I swore during this. It's not like I would have.
Okay.
This is not meant for younger audiences. Anyway.
Yes, I get it. Oh, I'm sorry, little ones. Sorry, don't listen to this.
Well, it's too late now.
I know.
um,
Like I said, I'm very open. I don't mind having any conversation about anything. So.
no, but hey, that's very admirable.
Yeah.
There are a lot of parents out there, and I believe my parents were very open with me as well,
Mm-hmm.
and there were some things they were open with, some things they were less open with. I don't need to get into all that.
Yeah.
But I think that's very admirable of you as a parent to be able to be like, you know what, I'm going to have these conversations because they're important. These
Yes.
conversations are very important to have with your
Mm-hmm.
children, at all ages,
Mm-hmm.
so you can have a better connection with them, so you can understand better where they're coming from,
Oh, yeah.
so they feel heard in some cases.
My main thing for them is I want them to be safe. So my husband grew up in a, I guess, standard family. He grew up in this, what do you call it, upper middle class. His parents sheltered him. They were pretty well off. So he had like a quote unquote normal upbringing, where mine was very like toxic. There was no like regular whatever, but like, you know, in my younger days I did have like, there was some sexual abuse, and I just wanted to protect my kids. So unfortunately my one friend was just like, who does not have the sex talk with her kids at all. She's like, that's the school's job. But like for me, I don't want my kids to like be unaware or be talked into something, and like, does that make sense? So that's why I'm so proactive about, even though if it's uncomfortable, you know, I talk to them. So.
Better ripping off the Band-Aid than letting it fester.
Yeah. So they know the stranger danger on their own.
I will say that's interesting about your friend who was like, just leave it to the school. They'll figure it out, because I think, personally, I don't know about your opinion on this. I've talked with my friends about this, but school sex ed education is a joke.
Oh, yes.
It is. In the school I went to, it was taught by the coach,
Oh.
who was very clearly a heavily Christian person.
Oh, okay.
So the only sex talk, and I put this in quotes, that we had was about abstinence.
Oh, yes. It's the safest method.
Because no teen ever is. Nope, never once are they going to ever think about having sex.
Yes.
When you tell them, just don't.
Just don't. You know, not because they're searching with hormones, because that's the age that they do.
But,
yeah.
literally, he had one woman come in who was a born-again Christian.
Oh.
And she talked about sex in regards to, like, I have to remember exactly how she put it, but a friend of mine joked about it later. She said, like, if you have sex, you're like a dirty, old, used baseball glove.
Oh.
But if you save yourself for when the moment's right, you're like nice, fine, pristine china. And my friend and I always joke calling each other dirty gloves because we were like, that's such a stupid comparison.
It's a stupid comparison.
And like we talked about STDs once. And, like literally once, like just in a passing like slideshow, like STDs are a thing. Anyway, next slide.
Oh wow, they didn't go through. No, I've actually gone through all the STDs with my kids, but I guess the education is a little bit more different now, because I've asked my kids, like, what do they teach? They do teach the different contraceptives.
Okay.
they mentioned some STI, it changed.
Oh, yeah.
Infection, I don't know. I'm used to STDs, but like.
I guess because disease sounds
I
too
guess,
harsh.
yeah, I guess, but it kind of.
Yeah.
But like, so what they're really into having conversations with the kids now is um, the different gender possibilities that they're out there. So it's nice because you're exposing children. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think there are a lot of people out there who are afraid of that, wrongfully so.
Yes.
Because I think it's because you see all the time, people are like, "Oh my God, they're exposing our children to the gay, and that's going to make our children the gay."
Okay.
and and it's like that's not how it works. A child, not a child, a person,
Yeah.
is going to explore their own sexuality in their own ways
Yeah.
in the future, regardless of what you teach, and that's how you get so much toxic homosexuality in people, and like resentment, like because you get people who are told you must be straight, so they go and marry a woman,
And then they find themselves later on.
and then they have this whole terrible like resentment towards their wife, or they ended up cheating on their wife, and they cause like a whole bunch of damage in their wake when all of it could have been solved just by like at a young age being like, it's okay to be this way.
Yes.
Or this is not even having to say it's okay to be this way, but just to be like, this is a thing that exists in the world. You don't need to be afraid of it.
Oh, exactly. I mean, like my generation, I will say, like I'm 41, and I sound so old when I say my generation. Like back then,
Back in my day.
Back in my day, literally, it was you were either straight or gay, lesbian. I mean, those were your options, and I think it's neat that you kind of figure out where you fall into. Now, as an older person, it's hard for me to keep up. You know what I mean? And it's not that I am against it. It's just that I really am. I have a hard time. So a funny story is like the different pronouns, like they, them, he, she. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so one of my daughter's friends came over, and they go by they and them, and she's like, they're going to stay the night here and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, how many kids are there? And I was just like, she looked at me. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I forgot they go by they, them. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Which they were very graceful, and they understand, which is nice. It's really nice when the kids are, I guess, graceful about it. Because unfortunately, I've met some that are so angry. Like, how dare you? And I'm like,
I'm just trying to learn.
I'm trying to learn, and not everybody can remember,
I 100% agree.
So, like, it's nice to have that our kids like, I totally understand, and I'm really like, I'll learn, My youngest has a friend that's transgendered, and like, my daughter was afraid to tell my husband and I that she has become he. And so my daughter would always call her by her birth name in front of us. And I mean, I was aware, like, and I finally asked, I'm like, you need to tell me, like, do they go by a different name, a different pronoun? Because I wanted them to be comfortable in our home. And I don't mind calling them by the name that they are now. And so my daughter was like, yeah, this is their name. They do go by he. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll talk to your dad, So I'm basically the mediator between my children and my husband, because my husband is very much more conservative. He was brought up in a conservative home. And so, like, I'm kind of teaching him, this is okay, it's not like, and he's not hateful or anything. He just doesn't understand it. And he's trying, it's
you gotta put the effort in, and so it's definitely, in this day and age, there's a lot out there to have to learn.
Yes. I asked my 13-year-old. She explains it to me, because I'm just like, oh, wait, ooh. It's funny because we have our moments called, so what's the tea? Like, we'll have conversation of, like, what's the tea? What's going on? And it's just funny, and we talk about our oldest one, and not in a bad way, but it's like she's she's my child who's kind of, the teenagers. They kind of move away from their parents and not really hang out. And my oldest is too busy. But my youngest one is still in that phase of, hey, let's have a talk. What's going on? Oh my gosh, did you hear they broke up? And so that's nice. So, yeah. Sorry, I always go on tangents. And
No, it's perfectly fine. It's that's what I'm here for.
Good.
I'm here to learn both more about you and to share that, hopefully share that people out there are like, oh, I'm not alone when you talk about these things. Because I'm sure there are people out there who like hear this and they're like, oh, thank God someone else shares that opinion with me. Or maybe even they hear this and they're like, oh, I'm not sure about that, but hey, at least I'm learning.
Yes.
Which that's what I want to do with this podcast. I want to be able to share that. I want to share people's perspectives.
Yes.
I want to be able to share everyone's perspective and be like, you know what, you're not alone in thinking these things. Also, there's a huge amount of like different perspectives out there that people can have.
Oh, yeah.
And it's important to hear all sides.
Yeah, no, I totally, and I love that because you know what? I actually really love hearing people's stories and where they come from. And like, it's almost probing, like I don't go and just start, so where are you from, blah, blah, blah. But like, I'll listen and I'm like, that is so cool. You know what I mean?
100%. That's, I'm sure I may have talked about this last episode, but I got the inspiration for this podcast through just listening to one of my professors talk. It was a world religion class, and my professor talked about all these amazing stories he had, and hopefully one day I'll get him on this podcast. I want to deepen my portfolio first before. I want to make sure I know what I'm doing and then be like, you know what, I have all this saying like I'm serious and I want to do this. Would you like to come on this podcast? Anyway, I listened to him talk about all these amazing stories he had about living in India with the Woodstock guru.
Oh, wow.
He owns his own church.
That's pretty cool.
He does his own like ceremonies and whatnot. And I listened to this professor talk, and this is about 4 years ago, and I'm like, you would have never known this just by looking at him.
Yeah.
And I mean, just like you have these amazing stories, and you just talked about how your father was a Filipino famous movie producer, and you come from a father who had what 3 other mistresses.
Yes.
And I mean that's
all his children.
and that good or bad, however you want to look at it, that's just amazing to hear about. It's so incredibly interesting, and it's something I want to share. I want to be able to share, and that's why I wanted to thank you again, even on here, just for allowing me to interview for you for this, or just have this conversation with me.
Oh yeah.
Because 100% people, I think there's like people just love hearing about other people and just hearing
and I'm
about.
one of those. I love hearing people's stories. I mean, I think like every person has something that is unique about them, and most people don't know about. If they are just judged by the cover of their book, people have this misconception about that person. So I mean, I think everybody could learn to just listen to another person's perspective, and I think that'd be great because I think there'd be less hate and less judgment that goes on in our world.
There's
I think
a lot
people
of that.
forget, a lot of less of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the world would be a better place if everyone just took a minute to take a step back and maybe listen to someone else's story.
Yes. So I think that's what people forget.
Well, thank you. So I appreciate you going into depth. Let's maybe pivot a little bit into, if you're fine talking about it, what you do now, if you're able to.
Oh yes, I can. So I actually work for a financial advisor, and I'm more on the administrative side because I'm not about to go and give people financial advice. So I used to be in banking, and I think I just love the industry that much because, I mean, like our world lives in debt, right? And so I was very fortunate to be working where I work now. And there was that step of moving from one to a new job. And it was terrifying because I don't like change. But I am so blessed and grateful to be where I'm at because I am with people that um, I work with that like support me and like helps me in growing myself. I mean, we're a small business, but like it is amazing. So like they're very supportive. So I currently am battling with some mental illness. You know, I am considered bipolar. I have problems with anxiety and terrible depression, PTSD, and like they accommodate my situation. And like I guess an example of it is like one of the times where I was in a right mind. I decided to quit my job without a job backed up, and they were able to discern and say, "This is not me. You know, this is not Joanna," and like we're not going to do this. And you know, my friend who was also my boss was like, "You know what? Something's not right. I think you need to go seek help," and blah blah blah. And so I did have to kind of go to the emergency room, and I ended up going to the psych ward for a bit, but it was nice. You know, I love my job. You know, it's my career, and I've done it for like this company. I'm going to be in there for 8 years, and the reason why I like this is so when you're young, and if you haven't been taught the financial um, situation, you grow up trying to figure out yourself, and unfortunately, sometimes you figure it out the wrong way. So my husband and I got engaged when we were 21. I had my first child at 22. So we were very young parents. And we barely had actual jobs that actually paid. So I worked at J.C. Penney's. He had several jobs like McDonald's. He worked for, a vacuum cleaner sales company. Then he worked at
Was
Rock.
he a door-to-door salesman?
Yes, he was.
He was literally the door-to-door
He
salesman who
was
would walk up
literally a
and
door-to-door salesman.
knock, knock, knock.
Yes.
Do you need a vacuum
You would,
cleaner?
and it's oh gosh, Kirby. That was the brand. Like it's like the Cadillac of vacuum cleaners.
All
And-
I know about Kirby is he's a little pink puffball.
Well, yes, that's a fun Kirby. That's just, and he does suck like a vacuum cleaner. But like, yeah, no, he did that, and then like he worked at Rock. But here's a fun fact with vacuum sales is the people that buy, and these are like $1,000 to $1,500 vacuum cleaners. The people that buy these are trailer homes,
Oh, boy.
which surprises me because there aren't a lot of carpet that covers a trailer home.
Yeah, you
Like
wouldn't think you'd
trailer
need that.
homes in a trailer park, and I'm like, okay. I mean, is that what you want to spend your money on? Cool. I just get a regular vacuum cleaner.
Yeah, I guess some people just like splurging in certain areas.
Oh yes, and so, but like, no, the one thing about him working at Kirby was like, so it's funny. I would vacuum, and then he would correct me because I didn't vacuum the proper way, and so ever since then, I'm like, you're gonna vacuum. I have not vacuumed probably in, let's see, I would say 13, no, 15 years. So we've been married 19 years. I haven't vacuumed for 15 years.
Must be nice.
It's so nice. Not at work, I vacuum a little bit, like my office,
Oh, yeah.
but like I haven't vacuumed at home, and I just go, that's right, you go right ahead. It's because he's so particular about it, and I'm like, and he doesn't mind. So yeah, but like, sorry, go back to where we were. I'm
You're
in
fine.
that financial thing because like we were young, we were stupid. We ended up buying a home when we had our second child, and honestly, we didn't have an income, and we didn't need to buy a home. So, long story short, I had gone part-time after 5 years, and then my husband decided to get a better job. Like, he worked at a factory, and he was like, no, I have a sales degree in marketing, and I'm going to find a better job to provide for our family. So he goes to this company, and what they did, we hate it. Like, we're honest people, and I think there's integrity in what you do and what you're working for. What it is like they drove like all the way to like Beechwood, over by like Marblehead, like far northwest of Ohio. And they would go door to door to businesses and basically try to talk them to changing their utility bills, but tricking them. And so
Mm.
my husband was realizing, oh, this is not cool. Like, I don't like this way of work. And then he got really scared because the business owner chased him out with a gun.
Oh boy.
Yeah, and he was like, he came home and was like, I don't like this. And he only worked there for a week. And we were like, no, this is not worth it. He didn't make any money because he had to spend money on tolls and lunch and mileage and gas. So we're just like, this doesn't, yeah.
Whatever money you're making, you're
Yes,
spending almost
exactly.
immediately.
So he had no work, and then he had no work for 6 months because he decided that he wanted to look for a job that was better. And then I was like, now as a much more mature adult, we were like, maybe you should have just taken any job just to get any income. So because of our choices, we ended up losing our home and we got a foreclosure. And then like it was a rough decision. So like there was like the things leading up to it and then the storm and whatnot, but like our utilities were getting shut off, and then like one Christmas was really hard. Like we went to the dollar store and got our kids some sort of gift to make them have a Christmas. We would like scrounge for change to buy like McDonald's for dinner. And what broke me was I actually had to go to food pantry because we had no food. And mind you, our kids were very young, like toddlers and like one elementary child. And I got into the parking lot and I just sobbed and I'm like, we can't keep doing this. And so like we made the decision to talk with his parents because you know, you have pride. You don't want people knowing you're struggling. But like we decided we need to talk with his parents because our fear was losing our children. Because actually one of the biggest things is you have to provide for your kids and this, you know, what is that? The state or the Children Protective Services. We didn't want them taking our kids. So like we talked with his parents and you know, we lost our home. I actually bought flowers and wrote a note and like we cleaned out the house. You know, some people when there's foreclosure they just leave it, you know, in a disarray. But we cleaned out the house. We left a note and a bouquet of flowers and says we're so sorry that we could not do what we needed to for this home, and we hope that whoever gets this home is blessed and can appreciate it better than we could. Yeah.
That is. That's so
it was
sweet.
hard, you know, like it's and I get it. So like, and then we had some credit card debt. Now, when I say credit card debt, like it's the saddest thing. Like, it was like 10,000, 14,000. But like, we had two credit cards? So I guess it was 20 some thousand, and that's a lot for not having very much income. And so we didn't do bankruptcy, which surprises us because what we ended up doing was we lived at his parents' house with all 5 of us, and my in-laws are a bit well off, so which is nice. They had a big house and they could accommodate us, and so we lived there for probably a year and a half to 2 years. And all we did was like we were on food stamps and like provided meals for our family and them, and we didn't have to pay rent, we didn't have to pay for utilities, and all we did was pay our debt. So eventually my husband got work, I went back full time, and little by little we paid off our debt, and that was great. And so like we ended up moving. So when we first got married, we moved into this apartment for like $500. All utilities except for gas was included. And I mean, that's super cheap. It was like a townhouse. And so we decided as a family of 5 to go back because we really liked the landlords. They really worked with us. We went there and we fit our family of 5. And we thought that with our first child and me being pregnant with my second, that we had to buy a home. And it's like, if I have to tell people out there, you can survive living in an apartment, you know, and save your money and be smart with it and think about your move, and because you want to avoid the consequences. But like our family of 5 moved into that same apartment area, and we made it work. We saved enough money. We actually saved enough money to, not a ton, for a down payment of a home. And then, like, my husband's grandmother unfortunately passed away, but she did leave us with some money that helped in putting a bigger down payment on a home. And now we have a home. We work towards that. But I will say, like, nothing brings me down, or one of my stressors, or what do you call it? My triggers actually is financial. So anytime that there's issues with finances, I get to this state of depression. You know, like if your car breaks and there's a big car bill, or like there's an unexpected like broken thing in the home, it brings me down. But our biggest stressors right now, so my husband works at Joann Fabrics.
That's a funny place to work considering your name.
Oh, you know, well, it's funny. His name is Sam. He's like, you should go work at Sam's Club. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm not a big people person. I don't think I can handle it.
Oh, that's fair.
So, but like he works at Joann Fabrics, and I don't know if you know the story about Joann Fabrics. They actually filed for their second bankruptcy. And if they don't get a buyer by March, they may close down permanently. And recently, they just requested with the court to close out about 500 stores. Now, that is more than half of the stores that they have. Like, it's more than half of what they have. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm saying that right. And so right now, we're in this season of him finding a job to replace that job. And, yeah, so it's funny because I don't think I'm stressed, but my body knows I'm stressed. So, but no, finances is really important to us, and we taught our kids. And actually, our oldest daughter bought her own car with cash. She bought her own. She saved. She works at Ming's Bubble Tea. Yes, I want to say it. And like she saved up to buy her own car. Now it was kind of weird to walk in with a bunch of cash at a car dealership. You know, but like she fanned herself with it. She took pictures. You know, sometimes when you have a ton of cash, you have to
celebrate a little bit.
Celebrate a little bit. And so like she really is very smart with her money. No, my son's not so great as. He's into brands, and we don't get it because we're not brand. Like we could care less. Clothes is clothes. But he's into brands, and every money he has, he spends it. Now he works, and it's like our oldest and our son, we make them pay for car insurance, and if they get a new phone, we make them pay for the phone. And this time, I told him, okay, you don't have to pay for car insurance and your phone. You can pay me in a Frosty from Wendy's. And he's like, yeah. Now, mind you, he got paid. And you know what he did? He went to Plato's Closet and spent it all.
Ugh.
But yeah, and then our youngest one, she's a shark. So if this kid we're really worried about, because one day she might like take over the world and like become a loan shark or something. But if she has money, and when like her brother would borrow money before he had a job, she actually charged interest. And she wasn't messing around. And she's like, dude, you need to pay me back. And so like she's okay, like she's too overly like protective of money. But no, we were really big on teaching our kids because we don't want them to struggle.
Yeah.
We know how it is to be young and have financial problems, and so that's why our oldest lives with us, and she doesn't even want to leave our home because she knows that I may have a job, but I couldn't afford living in an apartment by myself, or even living with someone who would help me out with it. I would rather save my money, pay some of my tuition. So yeah, she's pretty smart with the money situation.
Very smart. I would say it seems like you raise pretty damn well off the kids with money.
We want them to be decent human beings, not a-holes.
I mean,
that's our goal.
What else can you aspire to have in children? Just make sure they're not a-holes.
Please don't be an a-hole. I always tell them, please don't end up in jail. Don't become a stripper or sell yourself. Because, yeah, you could do other things in life. Don't end up like those. So.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah, fair enough.
Those are some pretty...
like, those are my standards.
Those are some pretty interesting standards.
Yeah, this is pretty interesting standards. So, yeah, no, like, So finances is very important, and I'm grateful to where I am. So
Oh, and I see it. It's very nice because I know you talked about it before, and this is a little bit ago, but you talked about how accommodating your work is, and
oh yeah,
that's a wonderful thing.
yeah.
Because I know a lot of workplaces probably wouldn't be as accommodating
No.
as what sounds like your where you work is, and that's lovely. I'm glad you have that for yourself.
Oh yeah.
Because
I mean, is I know not everybody can have that work environment. I mean, it is pretty unique, and when people ask me where I work and how it is, we were just it's a dream. Like my friend boss, when she was trying to get me into the company, and I asked her, well, what's the job? She's like, I don't know. What's the environment? And she's like, it's like a dream. And I'm like, okay, whatever that means. And so like it literally is. So like if I have any situations, I can close my door, lay down. If you need to close my eyes, I can take a little napper. Right now, I feel like a kid going through arts and crafts because one thing to kind of curb my anxiety is I have to like focus on something to kind of let it out. So I'll either color or do a puzzle or like shut my eyes, put some headphones, and sit in the dark. So like I look like a kid and doing activities in the middle of my workday. Got my little craft bag that says Happy Panda with all my stuff.
and what else could you ask for?
I know, and and they understand, and like they're very big into like education. So like I didn't finish college. I went to Akron U, and I surprisingly wanted to be a teacher, and then I realized I don't like other people's children so much. And I'm like, I didn't want to ruin them. So, but like, I didn't get to finish college because I ended up, getting pregnant. And then my goal was following after having the baby was to go back, and it never did. And so I'm actually just 1 year away from graduating and getting my bachelor's. I went to Hiram to do accounting. That's more of my speed. It's, again, some sort of financing situation. And then I had terrible depression where to a point I could not continue my education. And so my work is very supportive where they want me to grow, and they're just like, you know what, when you get a chance and you get to do it, just finish your degree and you'll get a raise. And I'm like, oh, sweet deal. So, and then within a company, there are other ways to grow. So for me, I'm very loyal to where I work, and I really take to heart where I work, whether it was here or the bank, and I want to do my best. So I'm very like, what can I do for them? You know what I mean? So, yeah, I like what I do and where I'm at.
That is a very wonderful story to hear, and may I say, very aspiring to hear. To be like, I was in this awful situation where I had not only to ask for money, but I had to use like food stamps and had to use whatever I could to help support my children, and then to be able to get out of it and be in a position now where you, like you said, you do own a house and you do live with you and your husband and your children. To be able to hear that, I hope that if this podcast could reach anyone, it could reach someone in that similar situation to be like, I don't know what to do.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how I'm gonna continue being able to live like this, and just hear that, hey, there is a chance to get out of it.
To get out of it. And the thing is, there's sacrifices to make. So even after we moved out of my husband's parents, and we lived like, it was like 5 years, of living in an apartment and such. We got rid of an internet. We didn't have internet. And that's hard when your kids go to school and they're middle schoolers, and then like you two have work and blah, blah, blah. We would go to coffee places or the library or anywhere that has Wi-Fi and use that as our internet. We got rid of phones, and we would just get, what do you call them, track phones, where you just bought minute to minute and text to text. So like you were limited on how much you can use. And we needed those because like my husband needed to get job, whatever, and communication, we needed that. So like we really did make sacrifices. And the thing is, like, people forget, like, oh, I can't get rid of my cable, or I can't get rid of my my phone from Verizon or T-Mobile. But like, you really, really kind of have to like make sacrifices, and you'll have to be uncomfortable for a while. You know what I mean? To kind of dig yourself out of it. And we even say it's a miracle we didn't go through bankruptcy. I mean, honestly, we were kind of really kind of there, and we did not have to go to bankruptcy. We reached out to our all the creditors, and eventually we paid our debt. And like even to now, like our home that we live in, we're very careful. Now, mind you, once you get a better job, you start making more income, the luxury of life increases, so it's never enough, correct? And it's interesting, being the way the lifestyle we live, I will sometimes like reminisce, and I'm just like, you know what? Our bills are too expensive. Like, why are we paying like $300 some for our phone bills? Because there's 5 of us on a phone system. And I'll be like, why are we paying for Netflix, Hulu, and every single, I'm like, we're not using these. And so sometimes my husband and I will have to kind of circle back, like, do we really need this? You know what I mean? What can we cut back on? Just because even now, financially, we're not better off. Like, our habits are still there. It takes some hard work to break some habits. And I realized, like, some of the struggles we had is I have problems with spending. And I'm not saying, like, I go shopping. It's funny. I don't go shopping at the stores. When I'm depressed or manic, I shop. That's my first, like, symptoms. I just shop. When I'm depressed, I buy for people to make them happy. The things I like, I buy it for them. And then when I'm manic, I just buy crap, random crap, and I justify, like, why did I need. So one time, I got a new phone, right? And I bought 3 phone cases.
Oh, geez.
Why? And it's funny, when they came in from Amazon, I'm like, no, why do I have 3 phone cases? I mean, how often am I going to change it? And so, like, I have always probably been the one who's, and unfortunately my husband wants to keep me happy. And so he is an enabler. So there's some things we can break our habits and work on that would put us in more of a better financial situation now. But our thing is, we don't want to go back to where we were.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, I sure I'm not the first one to tell you this, or hopefully won't be the last, but I feel like you should be very proud of where you've ended up, and should be very, what's the right word? But I guess proud is the only, just, I don't want to say like happy, like you don't deserve, like you didn't deserve to get out of that situation, because like saying you should be very happy or grateful seems like it's like you put the effort in yourself.
Yeah.
And you and your husband worked incredibly hard to get where you are, and I feel like you should have that internal feeling of like, we did this together.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope you do, or are able to feel that, because my God, that is an impressive feat to be able to get out of a situation that seems so dire.
Yes.
And
and I mean, my husband and I are proud, and it's funny because one of the reasons for divorce sometimes is financial situation, and we have gone through some lots of tribulations, and I'm very fortunate that my husband and I have each other's back, and it's actually nice because he is very loyal, and like, he really works hard at our marriage. Does that make sense? Because with all my issues, like, I have abandonment issues and insecurities, like, we've worked through it, and even the finances, we've worked through it, because we're going through our 20-year of marriage this year, and we have gone through some crap, and fortunately I still have him, and I still love him, and I'm grateful to have him. And now, mind you, like, I'm pretty cut and dry. I'm not a normal, typical woman, girl, whatever. And so, like, my husband is the more sensitive one between the two of us. And so it's nice to have that he's willing to fight, because sometimes when I'm in my dark days, I'm ready to just end it all. I'm done,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, we're pretty proud of it. We are.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
We have. It certainly hasn't felt like it, but we are wrapping around 54 minutes.
Okay.
Wrapped at 50 minutes.
Okay.
So I don't mean to rush this. We don't have
No,
to end
no,
right
you're
now.
fine.
Is there anything else you would like to talk about while we're here? Anything you specifically have that you would like to share? Any advice, maybe? I know we've given kind of a lot of advice already and given like hopefully a lot of inspiration to like get out of almost any situation. But is there anything in particular you have that you're like, oh, if I could tell this to anyone, this is what I would want to share?
Oh yeah, no. I mean, like I pretty much had these all throughout this podcast. Like I guess just to come back around to it is like seriously take the time to listen to other people's perspective. I think that would really help lessen the misunderstanding between people. And then also like give your kids the benefit of the doubt, like you're going to have to trust them, let them lead and live their own lives because they will figure it out themselves. Now, it doesn't mean that you just let them go and be flying off, but you have to be very supportive. I guess in that case, like, we're so supportive that my husband and I were laughing that we are the haven of all the troubled children that my kids are friends with. So, like, they feel safe enough that they can invite their friends to stay with us for a while. And then also going through, finances, I think that's such a big problem nowadays is, bigger life, spend. People are so into credit card. Like, I don't have a credit card. My husband and I don't have a credit card. So we're just into, like, if we're going to spend, it's literally our cash. You know what I mean? And so, like, I think people could really take the time to, if you want something better, if you're struggling, and if you want to save or have more money, one, you got to go out there and I'm not saying just get a job, but if you want to work, do what you want to do that makes you happy. But two, sometimes you got to make the sacrifices. It may not feel good right now, but down the road, it literally, you'll be so proud of what you've done.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But I guess that's all I got to think about or what to say. I don't know what to say.
You have been lovely. You've been an absolute joy. I appreciate, again, you coming on to this little podcast of mine. It means a lot.
Yeah.
Well,
thanks for having me here. I mean, I don't think I'm special, but it's been kind of fun. So.
Oh, like I said, you've been an absolute delight, and it's been my honor to be able to have you on here with me and be able to share a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah.
And so I just want to end this by asking once again, are you okay if with this recording, with me posting this on YouTube, to the public and just sharing this online?
I am good with that. If whoever hears this can be helped, that would be great.
All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And with that, I think that's where we're going to call it.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Of course.